Hello and welcome to Hippo Express Training 1. My name is Earl Mina and I work with the Training and Tech Department with Hippo. Here's a look at the Hippo CMMS training path in Express 1 and 2. You'll learn the foundations to the program, topics such as navigation, users, demands, scheduled work orders, reports, and more will be covered. Afterwards, during your one-on-one training sessions, we'd like to first meet with your admin users. If we're training your team for a second time, we recommend training your resources, and we can also schedule one-on-one training to customize your specific needs. After your one-on-one training, we hope that you become a Hippo Pro, and if you have any fine-tuning that you need help with, please contact our support team at support@hippocmms.com. Here's a look at today's agenda. We will go through a brief tutorial, beginning with navigation, then move into user permissions, look at demand work orders, and then we'll finish off the webinar with a look at the various dashboards within Hippo. At the end of the webinar, there will be a set of questions that will follow. Along with these questions, here you will be able to ask any additional questions or add any extra comments that you might have. These questions will then go out to our support team and we'll reach out to you afterwards with answers along with a recording of today's session. All right, so let's jump right in. Now to access your Hippo, you can use any browser of your choice. I recommend bookmarking your URL or adding this as a favorite to your homepage. Now the URL will be the same for everybody within your enterprise. Begins with your client ID, .hippocmms.ca or hippocmms.com. Each user that is accessing Hippo will have their own unique user ID. Generally, this is your first initial and last name, and your default password is password. That's something that your Hippo administrator can change for you. So let's click Secure Login. Now, when I log into the Hippo program, this will take me to the Enterprise page. So what's important to know about Enterprise is you want to consider this as your home base. Enterprise is going to give you links and an overview of what is going on in each of your facilities. Now, if you just have one facility, you may only see one link on your page here, and on the right side, you may also just see one name of your facility here. Now, this dashboard is the advanced dashboard. The advanced dashboard is included in the HIP Pro Plus package. What this package comes with is a custom user interface, so a special screen custom designed to your enterprise. It also comes with interactive floor plans, so you can get a visual overview of what your locations look like, basically what your whole floor plan of your building looks like. We can pull up information about that piece of equipment. All customers will have access to the standard dashboard. It's this icon up here. A lot of this information is presented in table format, and as well, you have access to the calendar dashboard, which may be turned off and on for some of your users. Now, the majority of this training today will be done with the advanced dashboard, but we will switch over to the calendar dashboard as needed. Now, at the enterprise level, we have main control panels always located on the left-hand side. If you're working at the enterprise level, you may see the panel called Enterprise Admin. Now, many of your users will not have access to these panels because this panel contains information more concerned with top-level decisions about how you want to use Hippo and how you want to spread those settings and decisions amongst each of your facilities. Now, anything that has to be done with your facility is done at your facility level. Again, if you have 5 facilities, you will see 5 links. If you just have one, you will just see one on your screen. And the facility screen is where most of the work is done. And again, these links on your facility screen are links to your floor plans. Well, maybe we'll switch it up and go to a different facility here. Let's go to our Hippo Arena. So now on the floor plan, you can see that I have my equipment mapped out in different places around here. I can also use filters at the top to show equipment. Maybe I want to see locations. I can zoom. I can pan around. The nice thing about floor plans is that it really gives you a very quick view of where the maintenance is within your building. I can also switch between my resources if they're assigned to specific jobs. Let's look at this person here. It looks like she doesn't have any maintenance on this floor, but we'll see if this person does. Okay. It looks like on this floor I don't really have any maintenance assigned to any of my techs, but these filters will help you if you're a maintenance technician or just viewing what is available on this floor plan. When I want to return back, however, to the facility screen, instead of clicking back on my browser back button, I can use the breadcrumb trail, which is located in this section of the page. You'll see the name of your enterprise, name of your facility, and if you're on a floor plan, it'll say floor plan. To go backwards, we'll click here first, Facility Hippo Arena. Now this takes me back to my facility screen. Again, you'll notice that it says facility screen and access to my floor plans. Now we have our main menu on the left side. We also have another menu on the right side. On the right side, it gives us an idea of what generated work orders we have in our facilities. Now in Hippo, there's 2 types of work orders. There's demand work orders. These are work orders that are ad hoc, unscheduled, and unplanned. For example, if you have a broken window or if one of your machines breaks down unexpectedly, that would be considered a demand work order. When your users are submitting a demand work order, that's done with the Submit Work Order button located in the left menu. We will get to this in just a little bit, but after a work order has been submitted, it then appears under this bucket here. Now, the other type of work order in Hippo is called a scheduled work order, also known as preventative maintenance. These are work orders that generate off a specific calendar date or meter reading. For example, if you have regular maintenance that occurs on a daily, weekly, or monthly schedule, you will see those PMs generated over here. Now, notice that these PMs are color-coded, and they do have specific icons. If you have a gear icon, this refers to a equipment-based work order. If you have a house icon, that is location-based. You may also see a vehicle icon that's vehicle-based. And if you see an exclamation mark, that means it's a critical work order, and that demands, that requires immediate attention, immediate work to be done. Colors are important. If you have green, green means not started. Blue means in progress. Red means overdue or critical. And if you have any yellow colors, which I don't have on this screen, that means that your work order is on hold. Now you can confirm those colors over at the work order search panel. Here you can see the different work order statuses I have. Now, one thing to note about the dashboards is that you will not see any completed or rejected work orders on that dashboard. Again, these are only showing work orders that have been generated and are awaiting to be completed or rejected. Now, these work orders that we see on the right are the same work orders that appear on the standard dashboard. So many of you today might be using the standard dashboard. It's the same information. You can search by work order ID number. We can filter by name, filter by status as well too. What nice thing about the standard dashboard is that it also gives you immediate information such as who is a resource assigned to the work order. On the advanced dashboard, we did not have that, but here you can see immediately if this is a technician assigned to that correct job. Now from the facility screen, it's where we are here, a member facility. All of our main control panels are located on the left-hand side. Instead of this saying enterprise admin, this now says facility admin. If I click on facility admin, this is going to show us all the panels that contain specific information to our facility. For example, I have a list of all my equipment. I have a list of all my locations. And it's also a place where I have my scheduled work orders. So the idea here is that you enter all of your data into the panels under facility admin. So you're primarily working off the submit work order form or scheduling work orders, etc. Now, I will mention that scheduled work orders is covered in Hippo Express Training 2. So if you are interested in attending Express Training 2, we hold those every Wednesday. There are still some spots open for tomorrow. Now, notice when you click on the name of one of the panels, the name of the panel will appear at the top of the grid. In Hippo, we call this type of page a grid. This would be what we call the equipment grid. Now, anytime that you're on a grid, you can make use of the control buttons located in the top right corner. For example, the plus button will give me the ability to create a new piece of equipment. I can delete a piece of equipment. I can save my changes if I edit a current piece of equipment. And then this close button is what you should use to go back to your previous screen. If I'm on this screen and I want to go back to my calendar or my advanced dashboard, I can't actually do that. So it's very important that you make use of the X icon, and that'll take you back where you want to be. Again, if we want to go back to another facility, if you have multiple facilities within your enterprise, make use of the breadcrumb trail. This will take you back to your enterprise screen. The main point I just want to make clear before we move on to our next subject is that you have two levels in Hippo. We have the enterprise level and we have the facility level. Again, enterprise level is where you make top level decisions about how you want your program to work for you, where the facility level is where we store all of your locations and all of your equipment. So moving on, we will talk about users. Users are the people who will be logging into your Hippo program. Now, anyone creating users or granting permissions, we recommend do that at the enterprise level. The reason is why you do it over here versus the facility level is that you can actually apply your permissions a lot faster and you can apply them throughout all of your facilities. Now under enterprise admin, we'll click on users. So similar to our scheduled work orders grid or equipment grid, we've got control buttons in the top right corner of the screen. We'll click the plus icon. And from here, it's going to ask us to enter a new user. Type in the first name of the user. And type in the last name. And we'll type in their user ID. Again, user ID we usually recommend with first initial and last name. Keep it nice and simple. On this screen, you can also add job titles. You can also add an email, any other information that's relevant to that person. Now the second step would be assigning specific permissions to that user. We can click this button here if you want to proceed with opening permissions. If I deselect this, this will keep you back onto the original grid. But we're going to go ahead and check mark this box. We will open up. It looks like I've actually created a user with this name. So let's just try a different name here. Mike Smith. All right. So from what you just saw, you can't actually create users with the exact same names. If you are going to, just make sure you find a way to differentiate between the two users, either by putting a period in between initial and the name, or just putting a number 2 or 3 at the end of the user. Now, there are 3 pages to a permission form. The first page is Enterprise. Now, only a handful of users will have access to these permissions. Again, these are more top-level decision things. So this would be your head Hippo administrator, or maybe even a supervisor that is managing the program alongside of you. These permissions that we see on the Enterprise page also apply to the permissions that the panels that fall under Enterprise Admin. For example, you can give the option to view, add, edit, delete users, companies, contacts, documents, facilities, and work order templates. Again, that would be appearing under Enterprise Admin. I can select the individual boxes. I can do the whole row. I can do the whole column, or I can do the whole page of permissions here. Now there is another permission at the top called Can Edit Enterprise Permissions. Select this if you want to be able to edit your permissions at this level. You can give someone enterprise permissions, but you can also choose to keep them from editing what permissions they have, whether that's taking away from their permissions or adding more that they shouldn't. Now at the bottom of the screen, these are permissions that apply to what a user can or cannot do within the Hippo system. For example, mobile, if you want your user to use Hippo on their mobile device, select mobile enabled. If they're a system administrator, someone who runs more specific reports or is determining specific settings, you can enable that as well too. Or if they're a guest, if you're only allowing them to use this for X amount of time, that's something you can turn on. It's also a place where you can turn on the calendar function. I'll leave that on for this user. We'll come back to that in a bit. Now you'll have a second tab. Second tab also has a list of permissions. Now you'll notice that this says facilities. These are permissions that apply to the specific facility. Now you always want to select what facility the user belongs to. That should always be step number 1. We'll say this user belongs to Hippo Plant. And from there, I can start applying permissions to that facility. For example, I will give this user view all the panels, but maybe we'll just give them managing PM work orders and maybe managing parts. If you are an admin user, you'll likely give yourself everything. And as well, you probably want to give yourself the can edit facility permissions. What I have so far, consider these permissions for an admin type of user. If you're your company system admin, you already have all of these. Now the last page is facility general. This is where the majority of your users will have their permissions, whether they're a requester, if they're a maintenance technician or an admin. All of them will have some sort of permission at this page here. First, most important one is enable login. This will allow your user to log into the program. The second permission is equipment downtime. So equipment downtime is the ability to report a piece of equipment as down. That may be different than submitting a demand work order for you. Instead of submitting a ticket for down equipment, This feature will allow you to simply go to the equipment and mark it as not working and down. Work orders, so the option to submit, the ability to submit a demand work order. We've got view all, so can a user see all the work orders in that facility? Can they modify all? So open up any ticket and maybe throw their name on it or change the details of it. Close all, so closing means completing or rejecting tickets. Can they do that to all? Viewing own, so these are the opposite. Instead of viewing own, modifying all, or closing all, you can limit your user to just view own, modify own, and close own. Again, this person is more of an admin user, so we're going to give them view all permissions. Modify due dates. Can they modify due dates? Either move them closer, move them further out as needed. Modify estimated cost. Batch printing, printing more than one work order at a time. And then managing work order requests. We will get to this in just a little bit. This is someone who's going to be approving any maintenance requests that come into the system. If you have a maintenance technician and you want to attach their name to a ticket, you must assign them as a resource, and that's checkmarking this box. If you are tracking your labor costs, type in your hourly labor rate for that user here. Permissions for reports are here. You have the option of running 4 different types of reports. Current work orders is anything that's open. Maintenance history is anything that's closed. Inventory is related to any parts. And then depreciation is cost analysis of how your equipment depreciates over time. And then we have specific email notification permissions. So you can receive an email for all demand work orders that are generated, own demand work orders that are generated. Now, if you are choosing just receive emails for your own, must be the combination of these two. This permission alone won't do anything. You can get an email for all PM work orders. So anytime a PM generates, you get an email for it. As well, you can get reminder notifications that a PM is going to come. There'll be more on that in Express Training too. Work order resource, if you are assigned as a resource to a ticket, you can get an email notifying you that you are the person for that job. Work order status updates, if you want to be aware of any time your work order changes from in progress to, let's say, completed, that you can subscribe to. Requester system, when we get that to in a bit, when someone submits a request for maintenance, you can get an email to notify you that something has been submitted. And then parts below minimum quantity is managing any parts that fall below your minimum quantity. These last fields at the end, this is optional. You could make your work order form a little bit more lengthier. That is, you have other mandatory fields. They must type in their contact info, requested by information. They must add a work category, and then they also must assign a resource. This is probably something you want to approach on a case-by-case basis. For example, if you have a basic user, it may not be their responsibility to categorize that type of work into a specific work category. In most cases, these fields aren't actually entered by anyone. They're just left empty. Now, let's go over permissions for an admin user. So if I go back to Enterprise, we want to give them full permissions at the Enterprise page. So that's all of these check marks. Can edit Enterprise as well too. Would be helpful if you gave them mobile, if you're planning to launch Hippo on your mobile devices. It's a very exciting, great feature we have. Under Facility Admin, again, select your facilities. So make sure that all of these are enabled. And we'll give them can edit facility, and then check mark every single box here. Under Facility General, We'll give them enable login, equipment downtime if you need, view all, modify all, close all, modify due dates, modify estimated cost, batch printing. If they're managing requests, enable that as well. They may not be a resource, but if you want to just assign them as a name, you can check mark this box. An admin would also have all reports, and it's really up to the person to figure out what kind of emails they want. Again, the more that you check, the more busy your inbox will be with tickets. Now, once you're done assigning these permissions, it's very important that you click the Save button. So you've done a lot of work entering your users. You don't want to lose that information. Now, if you ever want to go back and edit details of that user, what you can do is quickly search for that user's name. There's Mike Smith. Maybe I want to change his user ID or add his email address. I can do so by clicking the Edit button, or I can click the key icon, and then I can modify the permissions that Mike has to the program. So that's an admin user, someone who's got very high level access to the program, and someone you'll probably turn to in the event that you need to reset your password or have a permission applied to do whatever you need to in your database. Now, if we go to the opposite of an admin, the opposite of an admin user is what we call a requester. So a requester is simply someone who can submit a request. Again, that's not a demand work order, that's simply a request. The request first goes through an approval process. It's either approved or rejected by maybe your admin or maybe your supervisor. And then if it's accepted, it becomes a demand work order within your Hippo database. So I've created a template for a requester. And I'm going to utilize this keyword search field for last name. And we'll actually just use this guy here. There we are. What I've done for the first name and last name, you can consider this a login that many people will use. Instead of creating a login for every single user for your company, you can use the system this way, and they'll enter in their first name, last name, rather than having a user ID for every single person within your company. Let's take a look at their permissions. Again, that's clicking the permission icon. The permission icon is also located up here. However, you do have to check mark the box for the user. If you were using this button, you can use it if you're going to apply multiple permissions at once. Okay, so requesters will have very, very basic permissions. What we will give our requester is nothing at the enterprise level, but we still want to give them some general permissions. Those permissions include mobile enabled, requester history, user enabled, and web requester. Now under facility admin, we do not give any permissions. However, we still select the facility that this user belongs to. And then under facility general, just a few permissions exist here. Enable login, so they can log into the program. Submit demand work orders. However, this is actually submit a maintenance request. And then if it's important for you, for your requester to get status updates, select the all demand and then own demand and then work order status updates. Once you have your changes saved, then we can proceed with looking at what the requester demo looks like. So I'm going to log out. I'm at my login page again. Your requester will type in their user ID, password that you assign them. And notice that I am not signing into our regular Hippo program. Instead, I'm taken to our work order request form. So here you can see the requester name. Now notice that I rigged it back on the users grid so I can share this login with as many users that I need. Hopefully my requester gets an idea that they need to type in their name. Under contact information, so this is an email field. If you are going to get those status updates, you do have to type in an email. Please be aware that if you type in a phone number, there will be no correspondence to that phone number of the requester. Description, so this is where you want to type what kind of maintenance needs to be done. We can call this fix the light, keep it nice and simple. Next, we select our facility. So what building is this maintenance requested for? I'm going to say that this is a problem in my arena, and then you select what floor. So 100 level, and we have a light out in the men's washroom. And depending on how you want to set up your requester system, you can also turn on a priority level. This isn't here by default, but under your global settings at the enterprise level, you can allow your requester to indicate if this is a urgent maintenance, low, medium, or high. We'll say that this is urgent. Now, requesters can only select locations. If your requester is selecting maintenance for a specific piece of equipment, then they must use the description field and say, please fix the specific piece of equipment. If that specific piece of equipment is in your database, you will be able to edit the demand work order and add the right asset. Now I'm going to go ahead and submit this request. So this says, thank you. Please proceed with submitting another one or sign out if you are done at the screen. Now, before we leave this screen, I would like to show you another button. In between submit and sign out, we have the history button. If you are sharing a single login with multiple users, this would be helpful for each of the users to see what type of requests were entered into the program already. So I can see that Henry Jones had submitted maintenance for a light out in his office. This is currently in progress, whereas mine is pending approval. So mine has yet to be approved by someone within my facility. So where do the requests go? It's a very good question. We're going to sign out, and now we're going to sign in as our admin user. Okay, so again, I'm at the enterprise screen. Our main menu is on the left-hand side. There's a panel called Work Order Requests. If I click on this panel, I will have a list of all of my requests. These requests span different facilities: Hippo Plant, Hippo Resort, and Hippo Arena. Now, if you want to be specific, again, anything specific is done at the facility level. So we can go ahead and look for our desired facility. Click on the name. There's also a panel called Work Order Requests here. The difference is that we're not viewing maintenance for other facilities. It's just simply the one Hippo plant. From this screen, we will either reject or approve the request. If I click the reject button, this is going to remove it from the screen. At this stage right now, your requester does not get an update for rejection. They will get updates for completion, acceptance, and other things. So they would have to utilize that history button that appears on the requester form. Sorry, the requester screen. I want to go ahead and approve this request. And I'm just going to go back to our other facility so we're familiar with what type of request we put in. Okay, so here's the request I put in a minute ago to have the light fixed in the Hippo facility in the men's washroom. Now this is the demand work order form. As you can see, it contains information from that requester user. It's already captured the location. They put a nice description in of what needs to be done. So all that's left to do for the person who is managing work order requests is to simply type in a name for the order. We usually recommend naming it what needs to be done. This one is quite simple. Fix the light in the bathroom. Now you can also make use of other fields on this page. For example, if you want to use things like work category, you could categorize all your work orders. Where this will help you is if you are going to run like a year-end report or a monthly report on anything under electrical, you'll have a list of tickets and then their associated data as well too. Other fields that would be important would be outsourcing. If you have a company that is going to come in and do some maintenance in your facility, you can pick that company to come by. There's their phone number. If you have a specific person for that company who wants to come by, then we have company contacts. This person works for that company. Let's shoot him an email to come down. There's options for adding documents. So if you've got a picture of that broken machine, that broken window, broken light, I can upload it right from my desktop. I can adjust due dates. So if this is medium, or if I change it to critical, notice that it changes the due date to be done immediately. And then I've got my requester information at the bottom of the form. So this I do not have to change. Now when I click submit, you go back to our dashboard. Again, we know that submitting a demand work order will put the demand work order underneath this icon here. This opens up the ticket, and then it's up to your technician to perform the work. Now, if we just go back to the users grid, I'll remind you that anyone who's going to be approving those work order requests needs to have the manage work order request permission. What that looks like for everyone. Okay, let's see what's going on here. Sorry about that, folks. Looks like it's just a little bit of lag time on my end. All right, so anyone managing work order requests should have this permission here. Very important. If you are not using the requester system, simply keep that off. You won't have any users that have this requester permission, and just keep everything as is. Now, for those of you who aren't using requesters and you still want people to submit tickets, we can create another type of user. We call people who aren't requesters or technicians or admins, we call them submitters because they will be using the submit work order button. So I'll use my search field again. I'll pull up the submitter. So here are the suggestions for a basic submitter. Now, nothing at the enterprise level, but we do give them some general permissions. Mobile, view calendar is helpful. User enabled is mandatory. Facility admin. From here, we can give them nothing at this level. However, if you are using Hippo Plus and you have access to the floor plan view, it wouldn't hurt if you gave your submitter the view for floor plan, location, equipment, model, and equipment. Again, that's only if you're utilizing floor plans within the Hippo Plus package. Now, under Facility General, these permissions can be granted. We'll give them enable login, submit demand work orders, viewing all, maybe just give them modify own so they can't edit anyone else's, and then we won't give any close permissions If you do not give any close permissions, the responsibility to close the work order falls on maybe a more senior person within your company, maybe your admin or maybe your maintenance supervisor. Then I can also suggest status updates. So whenever their tickets get updated, they can get an email like the requester that something has changed. Again, that is all demand plus own demand. This permission does not do anything by itself. It must be the combination. I'll click save, and I'm just going to reset the password for this submitter. Let's do a quick demo of what that submitter experience looks like. So notice when a submitter logs in, he goes to the Hippo program. I'm at the enterprise screen. I am not at that request form. If you notice on the left-hand side, I do not have any of those panels that say enterprise admin. My responsibilities in Hippo are very limited. It's not a priority for me to manage the decisions about the program. I can submit a work order from this level. It does require me to pick my facility. Alternatively, I can go into the facility, say Hippo plant. I can click submit work order. At this stage again, fill out your mandatory fields, name, what type, and then description. You can encourage your submitter to also fill out like a work category. One thing they don't have to fill out would be requested by contact information. Because I'm actually signing into the program, because I have my own user credentials, my own user ID, this will already be captured when I click submit on this form. Now, based on my permissions, remember that I had view all, so I'm actually allowed to see all the tickets in the program. However, if I open up one that I didn't generate or not assigned to, you'll notice here that I can't edit details or any information. That is because I have the modify own, not modify all. So that is a basic submitter. The last type of user we're going to cover today is our resource/maintenance technician. I'm just going to sign out and jump back in as an admin user. We'll work under enterprise admin and users. And then I'm going to look for my resource template. All right, so let's look at their permissions for resource. So nothing at the enterprise level. Again, we want to give them specific permissions down here, mobile, user, and view calendar. For anyone wondering what standard view only is, that is something that won't be seen on your end. That's just strictly us, so don't worry about that permission. Under facility admin, we will give them some permissions here, and those permissions would be view everything except for the user's grid. Your resources don't really have to worry about managing user accounts. I also recommend add and edit for specs and docs. And then if a resource's name is on a ticket, they will have to edit how many hours they took to complete the job. In order to do that, please give them the edit permission under resources. Now, if you're more of a senior resource, or if you're someone who's allowed to just grab a ticket and put their name on it, that would be resources and add. If you're setting up users and you don't want them to have that ability, do not select that permission. For this type of user, they have to actually wait till someone assigns them to a ticket. Now, under facility general, we'll give them enable login. They can submit demand work orders. From here, yes, they can submit demand work order, but because I didn't click the add button, they can't actually assign their name to that ticket, so they won't be able to track their hours. This is generally something that you want to turn on for your resources. View all, modify all, and close all. If you have a more senior resource and you want them to have more flexibility, give them view all. Or if you want maybe your new resource just to have very minimal, just viewing own and modifying own and closing own would be the opposite. Work order resource, again, this is mandatory if they're a resource. If you're tracking labor costs, put that into here. And then we can choose to give them this single permission work order resource whenever someone assigns them as a resource to a work order, that person can get an email and they'll know that they're assigned to that job. So I'm going to click save. All right, we have our resource. His name is test resource. We'll close this grid out, go back to our facility. So on the work order form, we can choose the resource and attach them to the job. Alternatively, if the ticket has already been generated, we'll open this guy up. We can go down further on the form and then I can add the resource's name here. So to resources, click the add button and then find the resource's name. All right. So let's take a look at that from the resource perspective. I will sign out and sign in as the resource. Okay, so I have access to 3 facilities, no responsibilities at enterprise. I'm going to go to the Hippo plant. And I think, let's go to Hippo Arena actually. So here's the job that I'm assigned to. Looks like I showed you a poor way of finding that. I'll show you a great way. One thing that you might want to coach your resources on is to use the calendar dashboard. What's neat about this is that it gives you not only the work orders that are generated, but can also give you work orders that are upcoming in the future. Again, scheduled work orders. This is the month of December. Looks like I've got a lot of work on December 11th, so I have flexibility to move things around as needed. Now, you can also use these filters here. So I can move these menus out of the side. And at the top, there are filters that are helpful for your resources. So I'll look for my name, just jobs I'm assigned to. Okay. Looks like I'm just assigned to one, so why don't we go ahead and open up that ticket. So now we're working from a resource perspective. We're going to close this ticket. This applies to anyone that has permissions to close own and close all. When you're actually done the job, your first step is to change the status to complete. There are other statuses here that you can utilize. For example, if you're actually putting something on hold, this is a good status to use because it will prevent your work order from becoming overdue. Or if you are waiting for things like quotes, invoices, parts, or if you need a supervisor to review it, that's something that you can teach your team to use. I'm going to go ahead and say this work order has been completed already. Now my next step is to go down and add any additional details that might be relevant. For example, I can add a comment to this work order. Now remember that we actually have a requester signed up for status updates. So when I change the status, the requester will know that it was done. And as well, if you have any comments, that's also going to be sent with the same email. Notice that I have this big red box here. This means that I can't actually finish the work order. If you're a resource or if you have someone assigned to it, there's always a mandatory field for adding your time. To do that, we click the edit icon, type in how many hours it took to complete the job. In Hippo, we record everything in decimal format, so we can go ahead and type in 0.25 for a 15-minute job. There's also a field for adding invoice information. So maybe I bought something for this. If I click the add button, I can type in my invoice number right from the paper, PO number if applicable, and then you pick what company you bought that item from. Let's say I just bought maybe some tape or something. Materials cost me $15. If you used any parts, we select what work category. I pick this part here, and I used one. And then once you have all the information that you want on the form, then you click Save. So I completed the work order. Notice it's gone from this view here. If I wanted to see completed work orders, how do I do that? So one trick you can do is look at changing the statuses. So show me any completed work orders. There it is. Now, any work orders that have been completed, you can't edit them. If I forgot to add a piece of information, I do have to use the Add button over here. And this is going to allow me to open up another ticket, and I can say things like forgot to add invoice. This will always connect the two work orders together. You can also use the Find Work Order by ID search bar. If you happen to know the number, if I type it in here, it will pull up the same details. Or the best way I'd recommend to find work orders is to use work order search. Here I can say, show me all completed work orders, which I do not. We'll say demands. Okay, well, looks like just a small bug there, but here's my search results. Okay, so we're almost at the top of the hour, but I just want to review the things that we covered. We covered quite a bit. So we started off talking about navigation, switching between the enterprise and the facility level. Remember that enterprise is a place where you make decisions about how you want the program to work. Facility is where we store all of your equipment location. It's where your work orders, PMs are created. We went over a couple of different types of users. We looked at first an admin user. We looked at a requester user. Again, that's that special request form. We looked at submitters, people that can submit demand work orders. And then we looked at resources, your team that is going to perform the work. We looked at demand work orders, how to complete the demand work order form. And then we looked at the three different dashboards. That is the advanced, standard, and the calendar dashboard. All right, so that's it for today's webinar. Just a reminder, there are some questions that are going to follow. Please answer those questions and add any additional questions or comments that you might have. Our support team will get back to you and also send you a recording of today's session. Thank you all for attending and have a wonderful afternoon.